Good day, everybody. Welcome back here to the library. And we are getting very close to the end of NaNoWriMo, National Novel Writing Month. And back at the very beginning of this challenge, when we announced that we were even participating, Ross was here in the library with me, and we talked about kind of what we were going to be pursuing a little bit, and just kind of our hopes and dreams of the month.
That's right.
And so now that we're coming to the end, we've been wanting to get you back on for like a week and a half.
Yeah, wanted to be back on.
But we finally are able to get the time. In fact, I actually made an episode last night doing just a quick check-in. So they've already heard about me in terms of progress. And I will let them all know that we were doing another episode the next night with our dear friend Ross Hardy.
That's right.
So welcome back. And Ross, welcome back to the library.
It's good to be here, Brice.
Before we get going too far, y'all have seen written updates and have actually from Mary Catherine and have seen her on camera a little over a week ago now. So we do have a quick update from her. She's not here with us tonight, but she's got a quick written update for us. So here is where she says she's at. So she says she hasn't been able to write as much the last week or so as she had liked, but it's still churning in her brain.
Yep.
She's written a lot this month, I know.
Yeah.
So it's exactly what the challenge is for.
That's
It's getting those creative juices going and something closer to a regular routine. So I think it's, she's doing exactly what we hope.
Yeah, and this is the slow week for writing anyway. This past week being Thanksgiving week, so everybody's been running around, been cooking, been having fun with people, so not as much time for doing it. So if there's going to be a time when you take a little bit of a break during NaNoWriMo, it's this time.
Exactly, and I see that you take Mary Catherine pronounces it NaNoWriMo, and off camera she and I had a discussion.
Yeah,
whether
it's NaNoWriMo.
NaNoWriMo.
I'm not going reading. I'm writing.
Yeah,
I read these.
Yeah,
I
but
write.
if you spell the word out, treat it as a word. It's NaNoWriMo.
I mean, debatable. I mean,
this
is not the time for this, but we can have it.
We're in the GIF versus GIF debate.
I was going to be gracious and not bring up your mistake and to pronounce it NaNoWriMo.
I mean, you're welcome to live in your error, and it's fine. It's a free country. But we are in the depths of it. We're close to the end.
There's a light at the end of the tunnel. Almost there.
And hoping that it's not an oncoming train at the end. But, Ross, we haven't gotten to talk to you in a while. So, why don't you fill us in with, one, how your project has taken shape, where you feel like you are in terms of the pace you set for yourself, and then we can talk a little bit more about what's in it.
All right, sure. Well, if you have not seen the episode that I did at the beginning of the month where I spoke a little bit about the project I was going to be doing, I'm writing a screenplay. It's my first screenplay. It's called Wicked Sharp, and it is a horror comedy about a man who gets afflicted with a terrible curse. I've never written a screenplay before. I've written comic books, a couple of comic book issues. The
Library of Alexandria.
There's
a link to it on jbriceoven.com if you're interested.
Thank you. I'll pay you for that later. But I don't know if I'm writing screenplays the right way. I'm writing them like I write comics. So just with a little description of the scene and then what the person says and what the person says. And I imagine there are protocols and there are ways you were supposed to arrange things, configure things, but I haven't been stressing too much about that. I was a little bit unique going into this because I didn't start from a blank slate. I had something kind of going into it. But it was something that was just bits and pieces that I've been trying to cobble together for a while. So I didn't use this writing time to say I'm going to hit 500 words a day or 1,000 words a day I just said, okay, I'm going to use this month to purposefully wrestle with this and kind of break it down into its component parts and say, okay, I've got this scene and I've got this scene. What's the joining tissue that brings them together? And in juggling these things around and looking at these disparate parts and trying to figure out how they fit, you can say, okay, well, maybe there's a little ligament that I can fit here, and then that will create more possibilities, because the fact that is there will mean, well, maybe I could branch off here, and you're finding these little Tinker Toy connector Lego blocks that as you're creating, you're finding more ways to create.
Mhm.
So it's this progressive, like inverted pyramid, where it gets the more you put on the map, like you're able to like nucleate or crystallize off of that.
Yeah, I believe it was in one of your written updates. You said that you were really started off really slow, and then you realized conversations weren't in the right order.
That's exactly That's something I was going to talk about. So that was one of the most interesting things was when I realized that and I'm trying to talk about it without giving away too much of the story, because I hope that's something we can talk about later on the channel. I don't want to give too much away. But things that characters are revealing and conflicts that they're having, if they get... I realized they were in the wrong spot. Not that they were in the wrong spot, but that they would lead more naturally to a more interesting outcome if they were somewhere else. So you go from point A to point B and point C, and I'm reading this, and I don't know how to get to point D. And I realize that if I actually move this part from way down here and move it here, then the transition gets more interesting. Like, it's more exciting.
Right.
And I'm realizing, okay, well, why would this character say that? Well, wait a second. I wrote something last week, just a throwaway little gag, and maybe that's something that's been sitting in my head, so that's subconsciously I'm trying to bring these things together. So I realized that, maybe if I just move this here, and then things are start to click more.
Right.
So it's this process of assembly and discovery more than what you're doing, which I'm very excited to hear about, which is just whole cloth creating. I'm going to start on a blank page, I'm going to put a pen in my hand, I'm going to go. Versus the way I do it, which is kind of go into these fugue states, bash out just bits and chunks, and then stare at them and say, okay, well, if I tweak these a little bit and kind of knead them out. But it's been very interesting to see how I've spoken to this a little bit with you. I don't remember on camera or not, but how I look at writing as, it's already there, and just figuring out how to expose it on the page, how to reveal what's already there.
As Tolkien put it with writing Lord of the Rings, you feel like you're discovering it rather than writing
Exactly right. That's exactly right. So that's the process that I've been trying to get at, which is, if I know enough about these characters, and if I get a good enough sense about these characters, then I'll just see what they do next. They will show me what they do next. Just if I write the natural thing that they end up doing. And it has, tentatively, it's worked. It has grown into a coherent narrative. It's not complete yet, because there's plenty of room to punch it up and like add stuff in there, but there's one scene that's just not in there. I have not written yet. Cannot no excuses, just have not written. But it's got a beginning and a middle and an end, and there's room to kind of make things bigger or kind of cut things down. There's 2 musical numbers at least.
There you go.
To kind of pad out the runtime if things get a little bit slim. So I think it's very funny, which is I laughed a lot. I laughed a lot while I wrote it, but I'm very easy to please. So that'll be something that I hope to get your feedback on.
Well, I'm definitely looking forward to reading that. For those of y'all who have not yet read Ross's novel Cafe Noir, Ross is it's this one right here. Ross has a wonderful, and I would say unique sense of humor that you can just read it and go, yeah, this is Ross Hardy. And maybe I just know him too well. Yeah. But
the problem with the readership is that statistically very few people know me. Of the potential readers of the book, the people who know Ross Hardy group is limited.
Well, even if you don't know Ross Hardy, you will find the book hilarious, I think. And I fully anticipate I will find your script hilarious as well.
Well, I hope so.
And you brought up, our projects are very different.
Yeah.
And sometime years ago, we were talking about our different styles. And you said something along the lines that your stories grow and my stories build. That I construct. I'm more like thinking about the building blocks, putting pieces together. Whereas yours, as you said, you start with your characters and the story grows out
more
from
organic,
there. And mine is, I think mine goes the reverse way. I start with plot and work back to the character. And which has been interesting this month because I had the very broadest outline of a story. And I will say the original vague idea of an ending is not going to happen at all. There are still some remnants of that in there, but there was a lot more idea of loss and abandonment in the original idea when there was only one letter and I had no time or no inclination to write more. And that idea was just always the hanging out there of this kind of very bittersweet, there would be victory, but at what cost kind of thing. But over the month, and obviously you had more already there. But do you find over the month that as you like, okay, I have to write something. Now that there's a goal that something has to end up on the page, do you find yourself pulling more disparate sources out of your brain?
Oh yeah, oh absolutely,
yeah,
100%. Just like scraping the bottom of the barrel on just the random notes that I've written down, just remembered half phrases where it's like, yeah, this is kind of this would be a funny gag if I spent 15 minutes to think about it and work on it. Like I've been digging through all my old notebooks trying to just find something that'll spark of little jumping off point.
I just want to give a couple examples of some of the random sources. Right before we started rolling, I have since the summer, and I get longer, but since the summer, I've been pretty fascinated by Assyriology, which, for those of you who don't know, is the archaeological study of Mesopotamia. So that's
it's the thinking man's Egyptology.
Exactly, right? It's cuneiform instead of hieroglyphics, and this. And I've listened to lectures by a leading Assyriologist, a guy named Irving Finkel, who's really funny. He's got a great sense of humor. And so there is some archivist translating something in a short bit early in the novel.
In your story, not
in my story. I pulled in a game, a sport. I invented one summer as a child, and made it the game of the frontiersman.
Got your own Calvin ball in there.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I definitely, folks, if you're interested in that random tangent, I'm going to put an appendix of how to play the game.
Oh yeah, obviously.
in the back of the book.
World building back matters always.
And we might not have played the game more than 3 to 5 times in one summer because it required like 8 people minimum play, which is tough to get even as a kid. It's tough to get enough people to do a game that large. Yeah. But we did a few times, and I had a great time with it. I'm really proud of that game, actually. And then I don't want to give too much away here because it has to do with the climax and how things evolve at the end. But I create this big, gigantic monolith of a villain who just seems unstoppable. But I was been keeping up with, if y'all don't know it on YouTube, is Time Ghost Army has been doing World War II week by week they're in 1943 currently. So we're coming up on the end of 43 and they're as they go through it. But they mentioned one time Hitler was so successful in the beginning of the war because he wasn't a professional soldier. He could think outside the box. Mm-hmm. But as the war wore on, not being a professional soldier became a liability.
Right.
And led to the worst mistakes that, thankfully, that the Nazis made in the war. And ultimately led to their defeat. So that idea has seeped its way into the book. Because, again, when you have to write something, you just... What have I dealt with? What have I read? What have I experienced? And how can I just yank it in here right now because I've got to write something? And so that's been a really fun way to write for a month.
So maybe this isn't something that you encountered a lot, but did you encounter any cuts? Anything that you're like, I cannot include this anymore? Where like you get like you write something early, you get 3/4 way through, and you realize I wrote this in the beginning. It is no longer the thing. I have to get rid of it.
There's so we center not all the action, but most of the action centers on not only necessarily action's the right word, but most of the narrative centers on a town called Oxen Crossing, which, by the way, is another reference to a novel by a novel I haven't read yet, but it's a reference to a novel by an author who I read for the first time over the summer.
Who's that?
John Williams, not to be confused with the composer.
Okay. No.
But I read Stoner by John Williams.
I've
reviewed it on the summer review books. If you want to take a look at that playlist. But he wrote a book called Butcher's Crossing, and I was just trying to think of a town name, and I'm like, oh wait, there we go. And it became Oxen Crossing. So many names are references to authors that I love. Yeah. There are at least 5 different Inklings references. Even worked in a reference to my second favorite writer, Michael Shera, who wrote The Killer Angels.
Yeah. Soldier Boy.
And Soldier Boy, For Love of the Game.
Yep. Radical in Winter. Radical in Spring.
Rebel in Autumn.
Rebel in
Autumn. So he's one of my favorite writers, even though I know in terms of ranking him as high, I'm probably a rarity there, but I absolutely love him. And so there's a city named after him. When you just need names. Also definitely pulled some Star Trek captains' names in there. They used the actors' names for captains.
Janeway City.
Captain Brooks, Avery Brooks played Captain Sisko. And there's a Captain Archer.
Well, I know that one.
I think he was in One Letter. But yeah, so it's just really been fun and interesting to think back on all the random. When I just had something to be written, where did I pull stuff from? And it is so many different sources. Yeah. But it's been a really fun month. We have 3 days left, including tonight. I haven't written anything yet today, so when we're done filming this video, I have to edit it and then write till probably I fall asleep on this floor.
Working show business right here.
So, but we are so close to the end.
Yes.
We are hoping, we haven't gotten the schedule yet, but we're hoping this weekend that Ross and Mary Catherine and I can all sit in one room at one time and just sit down and do a final wrap-up of our experiences over the month and in just a short little video. So be looking for that at the end of the week. There will definitely be a short little video of me being so happy that this is all over on Wednesday night. The video may be 2 minutes of me just sitting in a chair weeping for it being done, but there will be a video Wednesday night being that this is over. And if you have not been following me on social media, because I have more than YouTube, I'm also on Facebook and Instagram. You can find those at the end of this video, but I'm going to probably put a video where every update I have done is all in one video.
There's one supercut?
One supercut of every update, regardless of the social media source.
Good.
Of just me saying where I'm at for a month. So that'll probably be in between Wednesday and our wrap-up video. But Ross, this has been a fun ride.
Awesome.
I'm really glad we've done this.
Yeah, me too.
And I'm really glad we as a group all did this. Yes. It's been a lot of fun to hear from each other and see how things have been going. So, as we make the final push, we got this.
We got this. Absolutely.
And y'all, thanks for joining us on this ride, and we will talk to you again soon.
Take care.